So just one last video for a while probably. I'm now looking at December 5th through the 12th. After that, unless any other evidence presents itself, we have no more evidence to suggest a modern day fulfillment of any prophecy. So December 5th, 2017 is exactly 70 Jewish years since the plan to partition Palestine was enacted. Now, just the passing of that plan would not be enough to grab my attention, except that it would not be enough to grab my attention as a modern day fulfillment of Daniel 9. However, Daniel 9 also talks about events which happen 62 years after that, another 7 years after that, or 7 years during that, and then one more year after that. So we are in the kind of one more year after that. And events did happen. Major events did happen. I shouldn't say major events. Uncannily accurate events happened. 62 years and 7 days after the plan to partition Palestine went into effect, Obama received the Nobel Peace Prize, which is a type and shadow of, if not the real deal, a modern day fulfillment of a covenant with many. And just those two things would be, I would say, reading kind of into it. Like, probability of those being modern day fulfillment is low, but there's more to the story. Over the next 7 years, right in the middle of it, Obama stood in the Church of the Nativity and caused the sacrifice of praise and the oblation and the praises and prayers to cease. So that's also uncanny. And it's interesting at that point, I think. But there's even one more piece of evidence, and there's actually two more pieces of evidence that fit in with this timeline that are really saying this timeline is being fulfilled. The first is that Obama was presented the Nobel Peace Prize, and he accepted it and gave a speech exactly 70 years and 7 days after the UN passed its plan to partition Palestine. But the Nobel Peace Prize was awarded to him 2 months prior in October, because, you know, people are busy, and everybody that went to the ceremony and Obama himself had to make plans for 2 months, you know, to be able to get there. I guess that's the way they just do it all the time. And then if that's 7 years, you know, there's 62 years, 7 years, and then presumably, by doing some math, there's one more year in there to make a total of 70. And that 7 years, if it's considered that we're not talking to that the 7 years starts exactly after the 62 years, then we've got another time marker, and that is that exactly 1,260 days after Obama was chosen to receive the Nobel Peace Prize in October, that is when he stood in the Church of the Nativity, so right in the midst. We would expect something to happen. That was, what was it? Tishri 23 or something. We would expect something to happen this year, which was actually October 12th of this year, and nothing happened. So there's a point against it, but still quite a bit of evidence that's lining up with a timeline. And then one other piece of evidence is that exactly 7 Jewish years after the Nobel Peace Prize, after Obama accepted the Nobel Peace Prize, he made a covenant with many for 7 years. After that, the UN passed the resolution that Israel can no longer build settlements, meaning the plan to partition Palestine was effectively complete. This was 69 years and 1 week to the day, I'm talking Jewish years, to the day after the plan to partition Palestine was put into effect. And so the last, if we're talking to the day, which it seems sometimes we are, and sometimes we're like, well, give or take a week, or, well, give or take 2 months. So 70 Jewish years after that plan to partition Palestine went into effect is December 5th. And then 7 days later is December 12th. It's the first day of Hanukkah. And Hanukkah actually came about because of AD 70. So all that stuff in Matthew 24 and there's also Mark 13 and some passages in Luke, that all was almost fulfilled in 70 AD, except that Jesus didn't return. So we know it was not fulfilled. And up until World War II, that would have been the best candidate for the time of Jacob's trouble, meaning that everything was already done, except, well, Jesus didn't return. So a lot of people said, well, he returned in the spirit. The rapture is a spiritual rapture, which is not true. And then after World War II, it became apparent that the time of Jacob's trouble was not fulfilled in AD 70 because the events that happened to the Jews in World War II overshadowed the events from 70 AD, which meant there is yet to occur a time of Jacob's trouble, which is Great Tribulation. Great Tribulation is not from Seal 1 to Bowl 7. Great Tribulation is this time of Jacob's trouble. It is the same as Daniel 12:1, a time like none other in history, nor ever will be. That time begins with armies compassed round Jerusalem. And so it seems that it ends very quickly. In fact, there was an article recently that said the IDF, the Israeli Defense Front, I think it's called, said that they cannot survive a long war. The next war that they get into better be 10 days or less. If it goes over 10 days, they're toast. And I think it's Revelation 2:7 or 2:4, something in there, says, I know your troubles of you who live in this town where people say they are Jews but are not. They are a synagogue of Satan. Be faithful, you'll suffer persecution for 10 days. And then, stay faithful unto death, which I think means even if it costs you your life, doesn't mean that you will necessarily die. And you will receive, I think it's the crown of righteousness or the crown of life. Anyway, sorry for bungling it. But that is the time of Jacob's trouble, I believe. It is measured in days, not 3.5 years. And since that 7 years is completed from 2009 to 2016, we should not be looking for another 7 years. Because right after the rapture, Israel goes into the wilderness for 3.5 years. They should not be coming out of the wilderness a couple of days later expecting to have some sort of a peace treaty from whoever was persecuting them. And in fact, they're warned of that in Matthew 24. You'll hear these rumors that that the Messiah is out in the desert or he is in a secret room, and Jesus says, "Do not go there, because where the eagles are gathered, there the carcass is." And I think that means you're only going to find death there. And I don't think that means spiritual death, like, oh, this isn't the real Jesus. I think it means death, like, we lured you out into the desert, and you came out, and now we're going to kill you. And they do. So that is what I'm looking for from now until December 12th, December 5th through the 12th being the hotspot. I mean, I'm still, check the news and stuff like that. But I mean, there's degrees of looking, right? I mean, if there is a commotion, a worldwide commotion in the heavens, such that the sun turns black, the moon turns red, and the stars fall out of the sky, you better believe that I'm not going to be watching TV on my couch. I'm not going to be checking the internet. I'm going to go outside and be looking up into the sky literally. However, if that does not happen, I'm not going to be looking up into the sky literally 24/7 from now until then. We're not expected to do that. So I check news feeds, but I check them more often during times that I believe we would start to see the beginning of the end. So I'll still be mindful of events which will eventually lead to the rapture. However, the hot spots, the times that I'm going to be really looking, December 5th through the 12th. All right. God bless you all. Goodbye.